welcome or welcome back to Life on the Franch. I know that the title of this video is very alarming, but I want to say outright that both of our hamsters are fine, we are fine, our apartment is fine, but today we're going to be talking about the fire that happened in our apartment building and the importance of pet carriers for each of your pets. So we have two hamsters. They're in two separate enclosures because hamsters are solitary creatures. But we've had up to 4. And so we try to have, we do have a carrier for each of our hamsters. And if you want a review of the different carriers, I have a review, I'll link it at the end of the video, of the different pet carriers. But these two did work for us in the moment, and really, like, so long as you're not using them for anything like long term, like we don't take our hamsters to the vet in pet carriers because they're just too small. We use like a kitty critter trail for that, but for an emergency, having enough is important. And if you have as many hamsters as we usually do, storage is a factor. So let's jump into the story. It was about, 2 a.m.? What did you say?
4 a.m.
4 a.m. It was 4 a.m. and Stan and I were both asleep. And I had been hearing, because I have insomnia, and I was reading, I had been hearing our neighbor's fire alarm go off for a while. But our fire alarms in the building are pretty sensitive, and the building's fire alarm wasn't going off. So I was like, okay, they're just like cooking. You know what I mean? But then all of a sudden, the building's fire alarm starts going off. And to be honest, it was a lot softer than I feel it should be. But the building's fire alarm did go off. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, this is for real. You know, because I had heard the previous fire alarming. So I try to wake up Stan because he's still asleep. So I wake up Stan, and Stan is like still in that like sleepy phase. And I would say, you can tell me if this is fair or not, you were pretty reluctant to even get up.
Yeah, the fire alarm we've had false alarms in the past.
I think it's because of all of like being in school and having all those fire drills. And then we were both like RA and GAs in college, and our dorms had fire drills like monthly. So it's very hard for us to take a fire alarm seriously, but obviously you should, you know. But I think we over practice them, and then we're desensitized. But anyhow, so finally I'm like, no, for real, Stan. So I get up, I go out to the living room, and I can like smell smoke. And I'm like, oh, this is for real. So I come back and I'm like, no, there is smoke. Go, like, wake up, there's smoke, you can smell it. He gets up, and I'm like, we gotta get the hamsters out. Because, so first I check the hallway to see if like there's fire, like, where we need to prioritize ourselves, or if it's at a like smoke level that we could, you know, save the hamsters. So I look in the hallway, and it's smokier than our apartment, but we are like 2 feet from the door. So I'm like, get the hamster carriers down. So Stan gets the hamster carriers, and so for those of you who may be new to owning hamsters, hamsters burrow. So trying to like find a hamster in a short amount of time is a little stressful. So I'm like digging in the bedding to try and find Hypnos. And finally, like, I see like the top of Hypnos' head. So I just like, I'm like, okay. And I just scoop with the bedding, plop in the carrier. And I'm like, we got one done. And Rocky's enclosure is above Hypnos's. So Stan gets Rocky out, but he's like, you should just go outside. So I'm like, okay. So I go outside and I take my car keys because it's also winter. So it's like freezing outside. It's like spring. It was cold.
It was still the beginning of April. It's a cold spring. It's not winter anymore.
It was like 40.
It was cold.
Which is not like, nice to stand up. And we didn't know how long it would take. So I could see smoke billowing out the window from the apartment downstairs. And so, anyhow, so I take the car keys, I take Hypnos, and I go and I sit in the car. And I will say that not everybody thought to bring car keys, and I feel like that's a pro tip. Everyone, like, I feel like one of those first date questions that gets asked all the time is like, what would you save if you were like in a fire besides your pets? And everyone goes for something sentimental. I'll tell you, in real life, take the car keys. If it's cold out, take the car keys so you can get yourself somewhere safe. So we took the car keys, took the hamster, sat in the car. Stan comes out a couple minutes later. He has Rocky. We're sitting in the car. The fire department, meanwhile, like shows up. They go into the apartment building, and we knew it wasn't super serious because they didn't hook up to the fire hydrant that was like right in front of our car. But they did go in with like their things, and it was very scary, and like it was also unnerving to see how long it took people to wake up and get outside. The apartment building, again, I think there's just desensitization to fire alarms, which is ironically alarming. But anyhow, so eventually the fire department leaves and they're like, you can go back in. We go back in. Both of our hamster cages are like basically overturned because we had to like dig for the hamsters. So we had to put the hamster cages back together, put the hamsters back in, and then try to get sleep after that harrowing experience. But it was like quite frightening, I would say. I feel very lucky that it wasn't like a bigger deal, and it was definitely good practice, is like making sure that you have your pet carriers in an accessible place, that you know where they are, and having a pet carrier for each of your pets, not just one pet carrier to use to take your pet to the vet. Yeah, moral of the story, to summarize, is get a pet carrier for each of your pets. If you want to see more of our content, they're usually not story times, but a lot of it is hamster related. Click subscribe. If you like this video in particular, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of our, I already said, content. It's been a day.
If you want to double up on our content,
click subscribe again.
Right. And if you're not content with that content, then you can comment down below.
Anyhow, most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!